Before we begin, in the spirit of reconciliation and respect, the InkGuild acknowledges that we live, work, and play on the traditional Treaty 7 territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ganaya, Piikani, as well as the Stoney Nakoda and Tsuut'ina nations. This territory is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. Finally, we acknowledge all Indigenous and non-Indigenous to honor and celebrate this territory alongside us. This is a disclaimer warning for anyone listening or about to watch this episode, and to my fellow participants. Tyler is an extremely angry and passionate fanboy, and he hates nothing more than poor adaptations of things he enjoys. You have been warned. Turn your headphones down and be prepared. Civility will go out the window at the 30-minute mark, guaranteed.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey there.
Bonjour. My name is Dean, and welcome back to the InkGuild podcast. Just go to fucking therapy.
Don't correct me. I don't care.
Need to start a revolution.
I'm going to fucking explode if I don't say this by now.
She would challenge them to double dutch.
I'm going to summon up his spirit to fix all of this up for me.
You didn't have good enough tea and or comic books, so.
And you know what? I'm gonna say it.
All of them are fucking idiots.
Simply everyone is taking cocaine.
Just say your morning routine.
You're replicant breed.
I'm so excited to find out if Jughead got abducted by aliens or not.
Boneless.
Is your refrigerator running? Better go get it then.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to the InkGuild. This is Tyler, hosting my first episode of the season. And we're doing The Witcher in its various incarnations. You've probably already heard the warning I gave. I hope Dean puts that with big disclaimer text at the beginning of the episode, like the whole big stamp animation, be warned. Fear ye all who enter here. Tyler is not pleasant when he gets on to his adaptations. We've seen a little bit of it in the past, and we're going to see more of it today. We're going to be discussing these forms of The Witcher as long as we have time to. The TV series on Netflix, the original Polish TV series, we're going to discuss that in passing. The books, obviously, and then the video games if we have time. Conversation's probably going to be a little bit random, jumping between, but I think we're going to start with the one that everybody here knows most, which is going to be the Netflix series. So, with that being said, let's discuss, because I've played all the games, including Thronebreaker and Gwent. I have read every book and short story, and now finished watching both seasons. I have not watched the Hexer, the Polish TV show, because it's also in Polish. And I do not sprechen anything but English. So, I do sprechen yelling and black metal, yes. Lee, what is your experience with The Witcher?
I have watched the TV show. I've also heard you rant a significant amount about both the books and video games. I played some of The Witcher 3, and I have read 2 short stories. I have not read any of the big books. I have not seen the Hexer, and I am too scared to attempt playing the video games again. There's a lot of them.
There's a few. Dean, what is your experience with The Witcher?
I'm more familiar with the Netflix series. I watched both seasons. I didn't watch the... What's that one? It was an animated spin-off.
Oh,
of The Witcher,
right.
right?
I completely forgot. My mind blocked The Nightmare of the Wolf. We're going to discuss that motherfucker, too.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I'm familiar with it, but I haven't seen it because I remember a thing. I don't want to spoil it, but just I remember how you were treating it in the live tweets chat. Again, no spoilers. But yeah, just I remember that. So aside from the Netflix series, I tried playing like The Witcher 3. Like it was like it had everything for me, I think, but just for some reason like there were a whole bunch of other games that got in the way. So I never got past like that original, like that first starting place that like Geralt is starting in. Yeah, never made it past that. Like I should have, but like I don't know, too many other games. But like I know of the books. I know of I know of the books, but I haven't read them. I wasn't aware that there were other adaptations, but yeah, primarily for me it's the Netflix series.
All right, Marie-Soleil, what is your experience with The Witcher?
My experience is watching the Netflix series, the first season with my mother, the second season with you, and watching the animated nightmare that Netflix created as well.
It's
with
funny
you.
that you call it a nightmare. It is indeed a nightmare. Oh.
I had a friend that tried to get me to play the games at one point, but like I'm not really a sit down and play video game kind of girl.
All right. With that being said, I think we'll start with the littlest known one, just because it'll be quickest. The Hexer is what it's called, and it was the original Polish adaptation of The Witcher. For those that don't know, I cannot say his first name. It's like Andrzej or Andrzej, but Sapkowski is the writer's name. Before The Witcher ever gained popularity in English or anything like that, it got its own full Polish fantasy television series in 2002.
And a movie.
And a movie based off it. And I can't speak to its popularity. I have never been to Poland by any means. It's got 13 episodes with one season. I don't know if any of the actors in it are big A-lists in Poland, but boy, from what I've heard, they just said, what is plot? What are these characters supposed to be? They're not that anymore, and really messed it up. Now, granted, they didn't have a lot of resources to do a lot of things with it. They didn't have Netflix backing them. From what I understand, it was the Polish version of Hollywood, which probably doesn't have the resources as Hollywood does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even if you look at it, Vesemir's a druid, apparently. That child surprises Geralt and turns him into a witcher, and a good portion of the TV series is dedicated to his childhood, which is the only thing they kind of did right in the TV series. He doesn't have a childhood.
I was gonna say, like, maybe he's someone who's just familiar with like the series, like the Netflix series, like more specifically. I was like, what is this adaptation? Because like, how close to the original is that one, like the Polish TV show?
It's further away than the Netflix adaptation, and the Netflix adaptation doesn't even look like The Witcher.
Oh dear.
Personal opinion.
Witcher
We'll get into that. It's Witcher flavored.
Witcher flavored.
It's like, you know how LaCroix is just like carbonated water that's been left in a truck next to limes?
Yeah.
It's like someone was a director and they sat next to the Witcher book and were like, that's a cool title. Let's throw a show onto that.
Mm-hmm.
They read the characters' names and that's it.
Wow, Geralt's a really funny name. Can I call him Gary? No, you may not.
Okay.
Anyways, so that's the Hexer. Not much to talk about. I haven't even bothered to see it. I just know it wasn't, the best. Moving on to the thing I think everyone's familiar with. The big, bombastic Netflix show. 2 seasons, 8 episodes apiece, with Henry Cavill, the hunk himself. All right. Let's break this down a bit. We'll start with good things. What was everyone's favorite part or character or arc done in the TV series?
I think for me it has to be Yennefer's, like, definitely. I think like coming from nothing, like working our way through Aretuza, essentially like flipping off Aretuza, and then just going at it by herself until eventually, like, come the end of season 1, where she releases the chaos and uses fire magic. That was a cool, sick ass moment. Her, I think her story throughout her story throughout season 2 was all right. I wasn't really like, it was a lot slower pace, and that's something that I want to talk about like when we do get to season 2 of the Netflix series. Just I think like Yen's definitely for sure was like a really interesting, like, it had like maybe like hers and Ciri's, I think, were probably like the good arcs for me. So yeah, Ciri and Yen, I think.
All right. So like just the whole characters were your kind of favorite, not any specific arc, just the whole scope of them.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I like not being familiar with The Witcher's like world building and lore. Essentially, like, I found myself like being like a thing. Like both, like, for like my girlfriend and I, who both watched this at the time, Mari, like we both like attached ourselves to certain characters because we didn't really understand like both the like world building and the lore behind it, so it was just easier to kind of like invest in the characters. And I think like like for me, like the characters that I invested in were like Yen and Ciri, like in terms of like dynamic story arcs.
Yeah. Lee, what was your favorite point or characters or arcs and etc.? Favorite thing?
Okay. One of my favorite things was the costume design, because the costume design in the show was really, really pretty and really, really detailed, and I always appreciate that. I also really like how they chose a color palette almost for each character and stuck with it. It was very visually appealing. And I have to say, I know that you got spectacularly angry at some parts of it, but I enjoyed the show the entire way through. I had fun the entire time. Some of it made me be like, does that actually make sense? But then I just like the suspenders of belief came on, and I had a grand old time. I really like I really like how Geralt has lines in the second season instead of
And fuck.
I
I don't know,
appreciate
like,
that he learned how to speak.
I don't know. I thought like the fact that he just didn't have any lines, or like many like, you know, lines aside from like and fuck, like that just contributed to the meme of the show. Which I mean, like for some other people that might have been like a little bit too much, but for me it's just like, it's fun. It's funny to like the fact that he's only saying all of this.
I think it was well executed in the first show. I just love how in the narrative of the show, the kid was like, I've discovered sentences. Yes, let's go. I really appreciate it.
Actually, from interviews that I've seen, he had lines other than and fuck in the first season. The actor Henry Cavill just chose not to say them and just grunt and swear and let the others decide how to respond.
I absolutely love that. That makes it better.
Like
that makes it so much better.
That's hilarious.
Go around me, motherfuckers.
At least that's what I've seen on interviews and stuff that put on Tumblr and the internet.
Now, notably on that point, I did read up a little interview with him about the second season. And in the second season, between the first and second, he went and read all the books, or he had read them all before. And apparently during the second season's filming, he was like a wealth of knowledge on lines to use in scene work and stuff. But again, that's all from media sources. Moving on, Marie-Soleil, what was your favorite part of the Witcher Netflix series as a whole?
Are we trying to avoid spoilers for the Witcher series in this, or no?
The books have been out forever,
Yeah,
and it's
but the
based on the
TV
books.
shows.
And trust me, what I'm going to say is going to spoil so much more than you ever could.
I
Okay.
also already spoiled like the ending of season 1, so
Yeah, well, the ending of season 1's been out for a while.
yeah, that's true.
My favorite part was the fact that in season 1, we saw this more in season 1 than season 2. The monsters and everything that Geralt was told to go hunt and kill, there was more to it than a mindless killing machine. And he didn't always kill the monster if he didn't have to. If there was something more to it, he found ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just really interesting.
Yeah. I'll give like that some credit too. Like the monsters, for again not being familiar with the Witcher lore, were like very imaginative. They were like grotesque and like disgusting looking. Like for those who are looking at the thumbnail on our YouTube video, they're not quite in the closet, but yeah. I just realized how weird that sounds out of context. Please watch the YouTube video too.
I'm not even looking at the thumbnail. What's in the fucking closet,
Can
Dean?
you send
I haven't seen the thumbnail either.
Who's putting in the closet? Who's in the closet, motherfucker?
Somebody should be in the
Monsters
closet if you're
being
safe to leave.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna have to give me a second. So, as many of you guys know, Gabe is the one who does the thumbnails for this, for our podcasts, and he.
I really want to know now.
It's up.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I like it.
Let's see.
I like it.
Oh, nice.
Good work, Gabe. I
Yeah,
know you can
it's in
hear.
the closet.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like that one. So that's our thumbnail for this thing. But yeah, going back to like the monsters in season 1, I think like the lore behind it too, like behind each of the monsters is really cool to learn. Like I forget which episode it was. I think maybe it was in episode 3 or 4, like where you learned where Triss was first introduced and you learned of the Striga. That was cool. And yeah, just I think like the very first scene of season 1, where Geralt comes out of the river and kills. I forget what it's called. What is it called?
Mora.
Yeah. So like that was a nice way to like introduce, I think, like new audiences. Like it kicked the pace up like really quickly, which is a nice like explosive way to start like the series.
I also want to add one of my favorite things is their monster design, because I forgot to say that first time. All of their monsters are just like beautiful from a monster design perspective, and especially towards the end of the second season, spoilers ahead, when like things start literally coming through the portals, they look even more alien and less naturalized than the ones that have been here for a while. And they are, the monster design, beautiful every time. And I know Tyler has something he probably wants to refute about that statement, so go.
Are we we already letting Tyler starting to scream, or should we list off some more positives before he just loses his voice?
No. Hold on. We're not at screaming section yet. I've set a timer.
Think that if we let him scream,
a timer. Oh no.
So my favorite.
We're just gonna have to, like, when he breathes in, sprinkle in our positive thoughts.
When I fucking edit this, I'm gonna just have like the timer up there too.
Oh, good. Time till Tyler's first scream. If you want to skip ahead, you skip ahead to here to save your eardrums. Good shit. I like it.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the entire Netflix series is one singular episode. And it's because it was the most faithful adaptation of the short story it was based off of. It's completely out of order in the show from what it was in the books. But I believe it's season 2, episode 1, where he is doing the encounter with Nivellen and the Bruxa, the female vampiress. It was very close to accurate. and it is the only adaptation of any of the stories, especially the short stories, that I liked. And I like it because they twisted it but didn't remove any of the content therein. So, this twist I'm specifically talking about is at the very end of the episode. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about spoilers. At the very end of the episode, Novella admits to raping a priestess of the lion-headed spider in her temple and hence getting himself the curse. In the short story, that is admitted right away. There's no hiding it in the short story. He straight up tells the story of how this happened to him to Geralt. And Geralt just sort of nods along. And in the context of the short story, it flowed fine. There was no issue with it. We were in a dark fantasy world. There was plenty of bad things that happened. And the man had long since passed that. He did that when he was like 16. And in the short story, he was also forced to do it by the bandits he was in a group with. So there was gray morally on any side. That's how The Witcher worked. But I really liked how they twisted it. To have it said at the end and have Geralt telling him to just kill himself over it if he really wants to die. That was fantastic. That completely lays the blame upon the person who should have been blamed in the short story. Very well done. I like that. That is a proper adaptation and twist onto a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The short story is also my favorite. It is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast for those who did not catch that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, that's a real that was a really good I don't know. I always considered like Geralt's story maybe like the main plot. So let's just say like the main plot for me, like that was a really good way to like kickstart like a new season, especially like knowing how it's the Bruxa, right?
Bruxa, yes.
Bruxa, yeah. So just like how the mystery of that creature was kind of like developed, like, you know, it was very synonymous with like a whodunit. So you had like a creature killing off people in the beginning, and then like throughout the entire episode it was just like slowly building up this like, you know, who's in the attic of Geralt's dear friend. And like I like pacing wise, like it was one of the few like parts of that season where it was like very like engaging to keep up with, and just knowing how like involved, like I said, not only Geralt but like Ciri was in that moment. Like it really helped establish them as like key focuses for the rest of the season.
So, interestingly enough, Ciri is not in that short story.
Oh, really?
Not at all. This happens before he even meets Ciri, before she's even born. Because if we got to remember, Witchers are old. And I have not looked up this fact, but I'm pretty sure Geralt is supposed to be 90. But in the show, I believe he's nearing 300 because of a little offhand mention by Vesemir that they haven't been able to make Witchers in 3 centuries or something like that, meaning that puts Geralt in the last batch of Witchers made at around 300. And so he lived a long life before Cirilla and all this shit happened. And the stories do represent that quite a bit more because they do have that time to them, but I'll get more into that when we start discussing similarities and differences. Cirilla's not in this story, and I actually didn't mind her inclusion this time. It adds an interestingly humanitarian aspect to the short story. And the reason you're saying you really like the pacing of it and the whodunit is because it was an actual monster hunt. Every other monster you face, and I'm pretty sure this stands entirely for season 2 and maybe for a portion of season 1, is an ambush attack forced upon Geralt or the Witchers in some form or fashion. They very rarely get to do any actual hunting, tracking, discovering what the creature is. And that was something the books did okay, but the video games did fantastically. Doing monster hunts in the games was a rewarding experience of figuring out what you're facing, what weapons to use, and all this. And that was where I think the video games truly shined, in taking a concept in the book and again extrapolating it into a wider, mechanic. But focusing on the show, I did like that episode above all the others because it's my favorite short story, and they actually seem to do it some pretty good justice, which I can't say for the other things. So, moving on then. What's everyone's least favorite part of The Witcher?
Is this are you still gonna be civil, or like is it? Wait, so is it good? The good, the bad, and the screaming.
I'm going last, so everyone say your piece about what your least favorite part was.
Lee, do you want to start or?
Yep, okay. Through the entire season of Netflix Witcher adapter, I think they did Dandelion a dirty. And I think they did the actual genuine friendship they have from just a few of the short stories I've read a dirty in the Netflix adaptation. Other than that, I had a great time watching this show.
Dandelion, I would have a drink with and pay to sing me songs. Jaskier, I would put in the fucking ground. They are not the same character at fucking all. At fucking all. Dandelion is a suave, horny bard. Yes, he is. He's very archetypal, but he is extremely loyal. He knows when to interject his comments and how to be a good friend to Geralt. He sees Geralt's emotions sometimes before fucking Geralt does and acts as a voice of reason to a stoic witcher. Jaskier is a loudmouth prick who interjects when he's not supposed to. They couldn't be more different variations of the same archetype.
I also, so on that point too, because this is really evident in Jaskier to Dandelion, but I feel like in the TV show Netflix, everyone kind of got dumbed down a little bit. Because they're not like, I'm not saying that the characters in Netflix are dumb, but in the book, a lot more of what they did makes sense. Like, and they just appeared more intelligent in the short stories.
Anyways, all right. Screaming countdown. Getting real close now. Dean, go ahead. What was your least favorite part?
I think the pacing of season 2.
I agree.
Yeah. I watched...
Continue.
Oh, I didn't want to speak while you were screaming. Could you?
No, that's a
background. That's gonna be a key feature.
Oh,
you were in good company.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So as like many people who know about my thoughts on season 2, like in particular, again, my girlfriend Mari, who I watched the season with, I really, really didn't like the pacing of season 2, and that is mainly like an issue that I've had with like another story unrelated to The Witcher which is Siege and Storm. It opens very strongly. Like season 2 opens very strongly, like addressing what happened in the end of season 1, moving forward with news stories, and all of that kind of sets up a very interesting premise. But I think just throughout the rest of the series, like particularly pretty much like the first episode and the last episode were very well paced. It was just the entire season as a whole felt extremely, extremely slow. Like whether it was like Geralt and Vesemir maybe discussing what happened with Eskel. That was a nice thing. And whether it was Geralt and Vesemir discussing Eskel, Ciri's training, Yen's kind of conflict with not having her magic. Just it's all very interesting plot points, but so much of it is paced very, very slowly, I think uncomfortably slowly, because I was really down for a lot of the characters' thing. I was really down for a lot of the characters' motivations and stories, especially that of Ciri, Yen, and Geralt's. But at the same time, because the season overall was just so slow, it was hard to really kind of care sometimes. Okay, Ciri's doing this thing, now Yennefer's doing this thing, now Geralt's doing this thing. Do I really care though? Because nothing exciting is happening. You're just learning more about the characters, which inherently isn't bad. I enjoy like kind of thing. I enjoy kind of like good character building moments, or like even like good episodes, but a whole season dedicated to that, like it's hard to like thing. It was hard for thing. It was certainly kind of difficult for me to like keep up sometimes.
Fair points. The pacing of season 2 is something I will definitely get onto. I apologize for the mid-rant scream. It was a scream of appreciation. I was agreeing with you in that guttural yelling.
Okay, all right, thank you. Because I'm like, if that's, oh god, if that's your approving scream, oh fuck.
That is my scream of approval. That is my I agree with you scream, I swear. We'll get to the screams in just a minute, but first, Marie-Soleil, what was your least favorite part of the Netflix adaptation?
My least favorite part, and I agree with Dean on the pacing in season 2, but like there was no character development from what I could see. Everybody says how important Ciri is to Geralt, but it's not shown in their interactions. Like, yeah, he bandages a cut on her arm, but that's really the only one-on-one time where he's actually being a bit caring towards her. When she's training with the straw dummy, he's not even paying her any attention to her. And then it's supposedly months since they met and they got to Kaer Morhen. And why didn't we get to see that? Like this road trip with Geralt and Princess Ciri, her for the first time like feeling safe with somebody on the road, him like killing monsters that are fighting, them getting to know each other as like humans and not just, oh, this is my child surprise.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense why he cares about her.
I feel that too, because like literally the entire point of like Geralt's relationship with Ciri during the series was just like, how is it that like, you know, how can you see like how can you really try to like protect and like care for Ciri when you aren't even there? Like, cuz you're right, like he, like now that I think about it, he spends like maybe only a handful of interactions with Ciri throughout the entire season, because he's either off like helping Vesemir with something, or he had that whole thing with Istrid for like a while, which like took him out of Kaer Morhen.
Mm-hmm.
And like, okay, so if we're supposed to invest in like in Geralt and Ciri's relationship, then why aren't you like progressing that a little bit? Like have them like eat a dinner or something.
Have them eat a dinner or something.
Have him stand up for her when the other Witchers are being assholes to her. Have him be like, hey, shut up, that's my daughter.
Like, even then, just like, especially like just key moments like that where you build, like where you show the relationship, not just have it all referred to dialogue. Like everything that happens off screen, like, or like shit that happens off screen bugs the fuck out of me, because it's like, okay, maybe there might be some reason as to like time and shit that maybe this stuff like isn't shown on screen, but for a key relationship between Ciri and Geralt that you have to that you want people to invest in, why are you hiding most, if not all of it? Because the few times that like they did interact, it was mostly just like conversation or like something that Ciri did afterwards that like Geralt is now scolding her for. Like, Jesus Christ, no, don't do that. Just maybe it kind of plays into Geralt being more of, you know, like a character who isn't really familiar with it, so he's just kind of like doing his own thing. But like even then, like you could have developed that throughout the series, or like throughout the season, and then like further develop it in season 3. But in the current, like in its current state right now, there was like nothing for me there.
So,
I feel.
Oh, 1 second.
Sorry, I'm on a delay. Go
Yeah,
first.
An interesting point that I wanted to discuss, and this is a great time to bring it up, is the idea that we have meta knowledge of the series before it is actually produced. I don't care if you've been living under a rock for a while, with the advent of The Witcher 3 and how popular it was, as well as the books being around forever, and now the Netflix series. everyone knows that Cirilla is supposed to be the adoptive daughter for Geralt and Yen. But the Netflix series, that is something we have put upon it. That is not actually really the case for anyone's motivations. In the books, in the games, the motivation of protecting Cirilla was just that. Geralt loved her. Started out as child surprise, but he grew to love her entirely. The motivation in the TV show is not that at all. For Geralt, it is to bring a child for Yennefer. Why do you think he goes to the Battle of Sodden with Ciri as soon as he gets her? He's looking for Yen to say, look, I've brought you a child. And that's a bit dumbing down of the emotions. He's also trying to protect her as his child surprise from the war in Sintra. But I digress. That's the first thing we see him do. And Yennefer's first couple interactions with her, all we're seeing is her trying to get her power back. But we've all got this assumption that no, they're supposed to be a family because we know the stories outside of it. Even if it's only just been me yelling at different podcast interviews and like in our group chats about this story, you all have the preconception that this is what it's supposed to be. And I think that's part of why it feels so fucking unfulfilling. Also because it is, but we do have that preconception about it.
However, in the show, in dialogue with other characters, you have Vesemir saying to Geralt, I didn't know she was that important to you. Same with Yennefer saying basically the same thing. You have other characters telling Geralt that, oh, I see, she's so important to you. Same with when they're first at Kaer Morhen and there are all those ladies that come to visit.
Wonderful ladies.
And then one lady says, well, give her to me. She'll have the men eating out of her hand. And then he gets all defensive about it. And she's like, oh, and you say you're not a father. Like all of the other characters are putting the assumption that they have a father-daughter relationship on it as well.
But they're not showing it themselves.
Yeah,
that's a fair point. Yeah. That's a fair point. The other characters tell us that they're father and daughter. They don't show us that.
Yeah, that's like it destroys so much momentum because like being told it in the beginning is maybe one thing. Like if you want to like plant the seeds and then let the audience see it for themselves, that's a good way to do it. But the fact that it was just referred to offhand the entire time, there could have been there's 8 episodes in it, like in the season. There could have been moments where they just did where they trained together. Like there was maybe, I think at the beginning of like episode 3 or 4 again, where like Ciri was like overworking herself with the sword. That was maybe like one of the more interesting things that they developed in terms of that relationship. But like otherwise, yeah, all of it has just been referred to offhand.
Yeah. Lee, you had something before I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
I was going to pop in with this after this because I think lots of the problem with pacing and lots of the problem that you guys were talking about is they didn't know whether they're going to get a second season, and they knew the story they were going to tell. And with their timing, they had to choose either to develop the characters or develop the plot. And they chose to develop the plot, but then all the characters appear flat and are slightly different from season 1, but we don't see any reason why they're slightly different. And like it's really hard to run a good plot with flat characters, but you can run like a simple A to B plot with really good characters very easily. And I feel like how flat the characters are kind of detracted from the story they were trying to tell. Because you guys are right, none of the relationships are established. And the Witchers, like that whole Kaer Morhen, was a hoot to watch. It was just a hoot because it was barely recognizable. Especially because all of the Witchers were universally transformed into assholes. And like the same flavor of asshole, which is very impressive. But like, there was no depth necessarily to the characters. Because like, you guys are right. They were told the relationships between characters were not shown.
Yeah. Like on Kaer Morhen too, I kind of attributed this to like when I first saw how they were doing, or like how they were portraying the other Witchers, it felt very much like a male locker room.
Oh my God!
It reminds me of a frat house.
Sorry, it's an approval scream because I believe the exact same thing. Continue.
Yeah, it's Jesus Christ. Just it's very male locker room-esque because it's just like, yeah, the whole like being assholes thing, like disregarding like especially women, like treating them like kind of just that they're there. Like the very hyper masculine approach to everything. And like bear in mind, it's just like so boring to watch. Like it's obviously bullshit, but I mean like it's not even like I'm angry like that they're doing this. I'm angry that they're not trying to figure out like more flavor with it, because like we've seen like a locker room, like a male locker room mentality in a lot of like predominantly male factions in stories like this. And just like, why? I don't understand why they would just not try to make it more creative. Like if they're trying to isolate, or like give the feeling of isolation that Ciri isn't welcome, or at least she isn't like encouraged to be there, like you didn't need to have the locker room mentality there, because that's just like very apparent, because so many people have already seen that before.
A fun note on this one before I go off.
Oh no.
Why is Geralt such a suave, stoic, stone-cold masterpiece, but all the other Witchers are rutting schoolboys? And why the fuck do we constantly get reference, you Witchers all hide your feelings, you Witchers all don't feel anything? Look at that fucking locker room and tell me these fuckers aren't feeling mixes of anger, jealousy, xenophobia. They're feeling a range of emotions. So no, you're breaking with your own fucking canon and rules by even fucking stating that. All right? That locker room scene pissed me off beyond all my fucking restraints. Okay, the moment I saw there was more than 3 fucking Witchers in those halls, I was screeching. And the moment they spoke, I knew I put a fist through my goddamn television.
He's not exaggerating.
I'm not exaggerating. Nothing more vile than this shit. So, Lee, that was your point. Speaking about timing and things, and we got onto the locker room talk. Is there any more you'd wish to add?
I'm just confused what happened to the other Witcher schools, but that's basically on the same vein. So no, that's all good.
I can note that really quickly. The other Witcher schools are not canon in the novels or the Netflix series. The Witcher schools of Cat, Griffin, Bear, and all the others were entirely Viper. Yes, were a fictional creation in the video games. I think they were
okay. That makes more sense.
I think cool.
That makes more sense.
Extrapolation of the concept, because that makes a lot of sense for there to be other Witcher schools around the continent, but it is indeed just a game creation, nothing to do with the books. So, the screen counter reaches 0. If I'm to talk about the thing that I dislike the most, because I have so many fucking things I dislike, and I don't know if I'm going to even bother getting through them all, but I'm going to talk about the general greater concept that has made me so fucking angry. Dean, I know you liked Ciri, and I know you liked Jen, and I can see exactly why. But if we take this story that is the Witcher series, you rip the actual plot and characters off the Witcher branding and name and slap it on anything else, I would be perfectly fine with that, and I would be perfectly happy. Why? Because I couldn't tell you it was the fucking Witcher if I just watched this plot without the fucking names attached. All right? The characters, completely fucking different. The plot, completely fucking different. What it seems like to me is someone read The Witcher, and they really liked Yen and Ciri, and they created this big-ass headcanon about what they fucking went through. And then they became a director and got handed a Witcher plot. And instead of actually, like, adapting the fucking story, they shrink Geralt's story to, like, 10 to 15 minutes per fucking episode. And what they do is instead cram their fucking headcanon OC plot and fill up the rest of the fucking episode. If I had done this and posted it online, I would be called a cringy motherfucker for posting my own OC as opposed to actually dealing with the plot, because that's what this is to me. It's fucking fan fiction of Yennefer and Ciri. This is not The Witcher. You took the actual writing and shoved it into a corner because you wanted to tell your own fucking story. Go and do it somewhere else. All right, so the scream counter dropped there to 0 really quickly. That being
Fun
said-
fact: there were 11 fucks in that trial. Sorry, 12.
Thank you for counting. Let me
Jesus
make it
fuck,
unlock.
I can't
You're
wait
welcome.
for
I
these-
want.
And I'm pretty sure every time he said fuck, he was like pointing at the microphone.
Just he's looking at me specifically. Are you getting this, D?
No, I'm not. Everyone can like what they like. I am always for that. However, looking at this from my perspective, this is not The Witcher. It's really fucking not. Motivations are dumbed down, plot points are mixed and scrambled like someone threw all 4 books into a fucking blender. And I was livid front to fucking back. And let's not even just talk. That's my general complaint about the whole. Okay, my specific complaints. You want to know the moment that broke me, that I had to pause to start screaming? It's in the last episode. So between the last 2 episodes, we have Geralt meeting Yennefer and Ciri outside of the walls of Sintra near that great chasm after saving them from some Nilfgaardians. Geralt puts a blade to Yennefer's throat and tells Ciri and Dandelion, Jaskier, I'm gonna kill so many things. I'm gonna murder. All right. So after he sends them away and they go riding off, the 2 of them go into the other plane, little demi plane, to go and fight Volethmar, who, by the way, is not canon at all in either books or video games. She is a complete construct to have Yennefer have an antagonist in this series. She does not exist in any canon. So that on the side. Oh God, I'm losing my trains. The trains are colliding. The screaming is imminent. So we take Ciri and Jaskier heading up to Kaer Morhen with the dwarves. They are in Sintra. Sintra is established to be on the border of Nilfgaard and the rest of the northern kingdoms. That's why it was conquered first. There is another reason why it was conquered first, but that is beside the point. It is the most logical choice across the Yaruga River to take. It is also a military powerhouse, and yada yada yada. All things that we don't necessarily discuss in the TV show, but are very well explained in the books. Kaer Morhen is in a mountain on the northern border of Aedirn, which is an entirely different kingdom. Sintra and Kaer Morhen are, and I shit you not, across a continent from each other. It's like saying Lee could go down to San Francisco to get to Sintra. That's the distance we're covering here. Northern Alberta to Southern California is the size of this continent. They send Ciri and Jaskier away, go and see that the witch has left. I don't even know how they get out of that demi plane, by the way. Never fucking discussed at all how they got out of that. And then the next episode starts with Cirilla and Dandelion in...
Jaskier.
Oh my God. With Cirilla and Dandelion in fucking Kaer Morhen. They have had a night's rest because she's changed into bedding clothes, cleaned up, and starts slitting Witcher throats. Then we skip to Geralt riding up to Kaer Morhen with fucking Yennefer behind him, calling his name as if they've been yelling since they left Sintra, having this conversation. Okay? How long do you think it would take you, Lee, to ride to San Francisco on horseback?
Well, it used to take people like 3 days. 3 weeks from Grand Prairie to Edmonton on horse. So that would take like half a year.
So I did my fucking research, all right? You want to know how far an average horse can travel in one day? It's about 80 kilometers. And that's including
love it.
walks and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet we see that, again, Yennefer is yelling after Geralt as if they just left Sintra and hadn't yet spoken. No breaks, no time. It seems like an hour has fucking passed since they left Sintra. How far can a horse ride in an hour? Lee, have you got a statistic for me? Isn't it
Unfortunately, not off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's like 10 miles.
It's like 10
Miles an hour.
miles if you ride the horse really fucking hard. So establishing that, it is 10 miles between Sintra and Caerboran. Yet, Ciri had time to change, slit all the Witcher throats, dress up.
She killed 3 Witchers.
And they had a night of rest, because remember, everyone was asleep when she was doing this. How far is it between Sintra and Caerboran? The fucking climate, the biome changes. And despite the fact that they left ahead by maybe, like I said, an hour, all they did was went to see the witch before they left Sintra and started chasing fucking after her. Yet she got there that much farther before them. Be able to do all this? Did you forget basic geography when you were putting this show through a motherfucking blender?
And before anybody says Yennefer could have portaled them to there, she didn't have her magic back yet. And they were riding up on horses when they got there during the day as well.
During the day as well. So, not even complaining about the fact that this is The Witcher and something that has an established, story and canon and characters. You didn't pay attention to fucking physics. Geography. There's a map of the continent that's been published. The author approved it. It's where everything is supposed to be on the continent. You didn't even look at it. You didn't care. And that, besides being a bad adaptation, you didn't care about the source material at fucking all. And that was the point where I truthfully broke. I had stomached so much until that point. But the moment I saw them riding up on horseback to Caerboran, as if less than a day had passed, I lost it. I screamed. And you think I'm screaming now. Okay, so there's a very specific complaint that I have about the show telling itself. Fight choreography, that's fine, pretty good. Monster design, it's all right, it's not bad. They threw in some new monsters for fun for some reason, even though The Witcher does have a full bestiary established that they could pick from, but they wanted to make a cool new monster for their CGI time. Whatever. There's one point in the last fight scene that also got to me. Vesemir comes up and tries to stab Ciri, and then Geralt does a block on him, which we are going to talk about how that's so fucking out of character for Vesemir. It's unfucking believable. But Geralt blocks him and holds his sword after a cool "I didn't look at you while I blocked your moves" montage. And then he stops and he's in a sword lock with Vesemir for a solid fucking minute while he tells Ciri that she can beat this. They're just standing there, swords touching, not saying anything to each other, and Geralt's just looking at Ciri. So Vesemir has now been established as wanting to kill Ciri. Geralt blocked 2 of his strikes from the back. He is now standing kind of beside Geralt, and he's just gonna let them touch swords and hold it there for fun? You're breaking your own fucking motivations! Alright. So, those were my least favorite parts about the show as it stood. I can go into greater details on characters and things, but I think that I've established my main points. Was it a Hollywood shindig that was rushed out because, again, they only had 8 episodes in an hour per? Yes. But what they didn't need to do is shove Geralt into a corner to tell different stories of OC. Why we feel the character relationships are so rushed is exactly because of that. Had they stuck to original story, I believe they had enough time to actually tell what they needed to tell. I truthfully do. 8 hours of film, I can pick out key scenes from the actual story that would fit that perfectly and establish the relationships we want without detracting from any of the characters. But they shoved that into a fuck corner. I need a breather. Talk amongst yourselves.
One thing I want to say that I thought of when he was talking about this, the dress that she's wearing, this white and gold dress, where did it come from? Because you can't tell me that the Witchers had that in a black closet. What? You can't tell me she's been carrying that around with her this entire time. And it wasn't even a nightgown she would have slept in, because in her little dream vision that whatever the
Volethmir.
the knockoff Baba Yaga sent her to. She's wearing that same dress at a ball.
Knockoff Baba Yaga is beyond correct.
That's hilarious.
She also always has her makeup done. And it's light makeup. It's like pink lipstick and like mascara, but her eyebrows are done.
Yeah. Like, I like maybe you think like I think what got me was like Tyler had brought up the fight choreography. I still like harken back to like the first episode of season 1 where you had that thing where you had that like incredible like duel with Renfrey, and I was like, holy shit, this is really fucking good. And then because maybe it was just impacted by like the show's pacing and like a focus more on like building up like the plot and eventually characters getting there, but like I don't know what it is, but like I didn't see a lot of like cool fights until maybe that one scene in the like it's supposed to be that one place that's supposed to be like completely neutral ground.
Temple of Marie-Soleil. The fight in there was actually really good with Riance and Gareth being unarmed. That was actually a fantastically choreographed fight. Didn't actually happen in the books, but I digress. The choreography was nice.
Yeah, I really like the choreography in there, but then just like that was it. I think like I can think of like the duel with Renfrey was like a big highlight for me. I think like the combat in like the fight scenes in season 1 were like very thoroughly well done. I think in season 2, like because it was mostly just like dialogue, it's fine.
Okay. I've had my breather. There is one other point I would like to speak about. And this is one I specifically wanted to talk with you about, Dean.
Oh?
Yennefer.
Oh no.
I love her. I love book her.
Mm-hmm.
And video game her is based off of book her, and it's fantastically well done. She is meant to be a very strong and very nuanced female character.
Mm-hmm.
I find I was lacking so much of Yennefer in the show, and I'll tell you why. Let's start with, what is Yennefer's motivation? Generalist across the whole show. What would you say in a sentence or so what Yennefer's motivation is?
That's a good point.
I've got a few answers. To get power. That is seen a few times.
Yeah.
A child. That is seen once in the Genie episode.
Mm-hmm.
To get her power back in the second season. I'll tell you something. Yennefer never loses her power in the books. That's an entirely contrived plot line to make her seem powerless and wanting. Because once they gave her the power of fire and destroying Sodden, she had the power she was after all first season, and they needed to give her something else. And I had a problem with her motivations. In the books, Yennefer's motivation is never power. She is powerful. Very much so. But she is looking for a place to belong, and she is looking to become a mother in some form or fashion. There are multiple little plot lines that revolve around her trying to cure her infertility. Which leads me to the point of how that is caused. In the Netflix series, she goes to basically a plastic surgery mage that rips out her fucking ovaries, makes it a paste, and smears it on her to make her pretty. How fucking ableist bullshit is that?
Woo!
My God. Oh, shit.
God fucking damn it. So, like, it's not accurate. I will say that, firstly, right off the hop. Actual Witcher canon, magic causes infertility. It is a mutation in the blood, and use of chaos makes you infertile. Happens to men, happens to women.
Mhm.
Period. Yennefer does not necessarily know this going in. Story is very similar, except she was actually a noble's daughter that was deformed, by the way. Ends up outlasting her parents because mages can live forever. And what actually happens is, you think Yennefer doesn't have the power to cosmetically magic herself? Let's discuss her power scale. She can burn down an entire forest. Does she not have the magic to fix Sabent's spine? So in the books, she does. Most mages, especially female mages, are like second or third daughters in most houses. They are sent to Aretuza to gain some standing there, as you would send family members out to different guilds to gain your family's standing in any medieval society. And it's usually daughters that can't be married off due to some deformity. It's very dark fantasy of them.
Mm-hmm.
But when you gain enough power, you're supposed to be badass sorceresses. There's something in The Witcher called cosmetic magic. All mages look pretty all the time. Why? They've cast spells and glamours on themselves. They've fixed their imperfections because they're vain, they live forever, and why the fuck not? However, they do end up infertile. And that's a huge point of Yennefer's life as she gets to be 200, 300, because she's very old. And she realizes she wants a child. She wants to be a better mother than any she's met, including her own. And that's a fantastic motivation. More than just, I'm ugly, make me pretty, I don't care about the consequences, which is such a... And it's a great motivation for a different character, for a different story. But me knowing what Yennefer was and could have been ripped me a fucking part. And let's discuss ableism in The Witcher. Because that other bit with it, and we're going to see it more coming up with a few other characters, I'm pretty sure. The Codringer and Fen with Istrid going to them. Fucking Yennefer going to Aretuza. Can we move past this? And I admit some of that was in the original Witcher. But if there's something you can do to adapt, it's to take away those negative aspects, those negative bad tropes, not to reinforce them and make them a driving motivation. All right.
Isn't there a line in the first, I think it was Tisana says to Yennefer, you're too ugly for anyone to love?
Oh, God.
First season?
And then she's a mother by the second season?
Yeah, then in the second season, she's all caring and wanting to protect Yennefer.
Also, straight up calls her Piglet. So,
yeah, to say it calls her Piglet a lot.
Yeah.
And that is my problem with Yennefer as a whole in the Netflix. I'm not saying it's not a very interesting motivation and an interesting turn of events. It very well could be. But I cannot see past what Yennefer originally was. I cannot see past those strong motherly motivations that she had into what I consider it almost like, to me, was a man writing a woman. And I know it wasn't, because I'm pretty sure the director's female for the Witcher series. I'm not going to fucking fact check this. I'm too angry to look at Wikipedia right now. But that's what it seemed like to me. This is what a man writing a woman would be. Oh, a woman? She's not pretty. She'll sacrifice anything to be pretty. Come the fuck on!
Yeah.
All right. There's my Yennefer bit. Again, would have been a fine character anywhere else. But I love the real Yen. Actually, I'm pretty sure I just stole that line from Geralt. Hold on. I don't remember. Fuck. Okay. I'm backing off. Did a lot of yelling.
something interesting I find with Yennefer's character too, disregarding all of this, is in season 1 they set up that Geralt and Yennefer are linked together by destiny, and that's why they keep running into each other, right? So the titular relationships in The Witcher are supposed to be Geralt and Ciri and Geralt and Yennefer. But you spend more time with Yennefer hanging out with Jaskier, whatever. Discount Dandelion. You spend more time with Yennefer hanging out with Discount Dandelion than you do Geralt, and then when they finally do meet up, she kind of just like takes a child surprise and dips, which I thought was very interesting because like you take this like little triumvirate that you have that is the core of the relationships you're trying to build. You don't give them screen time together, and then when you finally give them time together, there's one dinner, everything goes to shit, and then Yennefer kidnaps the child and dips. And then somehow the child ends up with this random dude who got pulled in because like it's like this trio whenever they don't have one or the other just randomly grabs Dandelion. Because when Yennefer wasn't with Geralt or Ciri, what did she do? She ran a Dandelion, and then they like had their adventures. And then Ciri goes off with fucking Yennefer. And where does Geralt do? He goes busts Jaskier out of prison. And then they have an adventure. And then Geralt and Yennefer go off to like see the Hag or whatever. And what happens with Ciri? She's just dumped with this random Jaskier dude who like I appreciate the weird symmetry of it, but it's still just weird. And that is the only rant I have.
That reminds me of something I was talking to Tyler about. How does Geralt know where Jaskier is? Jaskier.
Oh my fucking god! Yeah, holy shit.
Yennefer never told him about it. Yennefer never mentioned hanging out with him. He shows up. He didn't know any of that, and then Jaskier just jumps along on this trip. I don't know. It doesn't explicitly state that Geralt explained where they were going or why they're doing this. He just goes with him. And then Ciri just goes with this random guy and a bunch of dwarves that she's never met before because Geralt says go.
I find it amazing how much that Discount Dandelion's ready to just like roll with things with no explanation. Don't get me wrong, I find it incredibly entertaining.
Yeah.
It's just strange.
I'll give like the actors credit for like their performances. Very good.
Oh yeah. Very, very good.
The characters after like listening to like everyone speak about it is like oh fuck. Tyler, have you spoken about Ciri though?
I don't know, do you want me to?
Would you like to?
Ciri is actually one of the better done, but she is still a little empty. Where do I begin on Cirilla of Sintra? So, I have to start with something weird. And I will say that despite what I say next may be spoilers, I actually don't know if it's going to be because I cannot tell the direction they're going to take the show. With the ending of season 2, they have effectively neutered the largest triggering event in the series that happens between Cirilla, Yen, Geralt, and Vilgefortz. That establishes Vilgefortz as the main villain. They've neutered the event, which is a ball at Thanid Isle where Yennefer is considering enrolling Cirilla at Aretuza to become a sorceress because she is a source of power. And so they go to this big soiree of the national leaders, and a coup breaks out. Vilgefortz tries to steal Ciri. Cirilla vanishes, and then Geralt is left on a trek to find her, which is actually what the main story of the books are about, is Geralt traveling south to rescue Cirilla. And a whole bunch of interesting things happen between all of the characters, and we do a split perspective then, whereas the short stories are entirely just Geralt doing things. The novels actually go into a split perspective. Yes, Lee, I just read your comment. Anyways, so Cirilla is intentionally kind of flat for the beginning while. And it's not until much, much later that we get so much of her personality when she gets her own story, when she's alone and falls into the gang and does a whole bunch of very interesting things. Because she doesn't have a lot of agency until then. She's under Geralt, who has protected her for a while up until this point, gone up to Kaer Morhen to learn to be a witcher, met the other witchers who are not dickholes, met Yennefer, who starts to teach her how to train her magic in the Temple of Monoliths, and then travels south to where this coup happens. And they've effectively neutered that huge event, which sends Cirilla out on her own. So I completely understand why they've given Cirilla so much more character. I'm dangerous, I don't want to hurt anybody, but I want to be the best witcher to show off to my foster dad is all what she does. But again, it's rushed. It's so fucking rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Spends over half a year at Kaer Morhen, I want to say, learning swordsmanship. By the time they leave Kaer Morhen, she is a proficient swordsman. She ends up going to a gladiator ring, like 3 books down, and kicking fucking ass in the gladiator ring by herself. And she's a fucking badass. She falls in with a crew of fucking thieving kids down in Nilfgaard. They steal from military patrols, whole bunches of dope-ass shit. They've made her very much a damsel in distress in the Witcher series. And again, at this point in the series, she is a damsel in distress. That whole screaming, blowing up thing, that happens like, I think, once total. Once. But she does it a whole bunch in the Witcher Netflix series. Why? Well, they have to show she's the ticking time bomb, and they have to show it quickly. And I'm going to spoil something real fucked up and weird about the Witcher series. Cirilla is important, yes, but she's not the most important thing about her. The most important thing about her is that she is actually genetically engineered to birth the perfect mage, and that is actually why everyone wants her. But again, I think they've completely scrapped that plot line because they're making Cirilla to be the most important and perfect thing. And say what you want about Mary Sueism and she can do no wrong, I don't particularly care. But I can't see where this fucking series is going because they've neutered so many of the most important inciting events. Those of you who have watched the series, what's the Wild Hunt doing at the end of season 2? What are those riders chasing down Cirilla for? Does anybody know?
Mm-mm. Not one clue.
Not one clue. They're not even technically the main villains of the series. They are the main villains in The Witcher 3, and there is an actual very good canon reason for that, is someone else becomes their king. And that changes their whole motivation. Why was Volithmir trapped on this plane and not with her Riders of the Wild Hunt if she's a member? What plane were they on that the Riders of the Hunt were just there waiting? It completely throws the entire future of the series out of balance and just leaves me stunned. Because what's coming next is not the books of The Witcher. It's, again, someone else's story. So Cirilla's fine. For now. For now.
I think something we forget, and this is probably because the actress that plays Cirilla in the Netflix series is like 20 years old. She's 12 or 13. Like when Geralt shows up to pick her up, it's been 12 years since the betrothal, like since the whole thing happened. Like when he takes the law of surprise and ends up with
Yes, we get it.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Pavetta and Dooney, the hedgehog storyline, yeah.
Yeah, so she's about between 11 and 13 years old.
See, yeah, as someone who isn't familiar with things, as someone who isn't familiar with like maybe with the books, like how much more different is it that they've aged Ciri up?
So
now?
actually as different as you might think. Because in the books take place over a course of like 3 or 4 years. Keep in mind. There are large time skips where Ciri is training with Geralt and building those relationships. There's large time skips where people are in very different places from what they are. There are, in the Witcher canon, 3 wars with Nilfgaard, 2 in the books and 1 in the games. In the Netflix show, because again, they're trying to time crunch this up into a couple of the most interesting months in the world, which is a common fucking theme in modern media, I will say. But they've crammed a Nilfgaardian war into 3 months when there's supposed to be a 2 to 3 year period between 2 Nilfgaardian wars where very interesting political things happen and change. And again, we have the time to grow the characters. And we don't get that here. We really don't get that here. So Ciri's the right age. Ciri's supposed to be about like 15 or 16 when some of this shit's going down. Yeah. Ciri is okay. Just okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Because we have spent a lot of time on the Netflix series, and I do realize that is because everyone knows it the best. While we're on Netflix, Nightmare of the Wolf.
Oh no.
I've watched it. Marie-Soleil has watched it. Lee, did you ever partake of Nightmare of the Wolf?
No.
After
I
my
forgot
rant?
it existed until it was mentioned at the beginning of this podcast.
I keep fucking repressing that memory, so we better hurry up before I repress it again. Dean, you ever watched that character? All right. You take the Castlevania Netflix series. You reskin it slightly. You change the names to Witcher names. And you put it out again. I'm pretty sure at least 2 of the fight choreographies in Nightmare of the Wolf were ripped right from the Castlevania series. Story follows Vesemir in his younger days and shows the fall of the Witchers to a cadre of sorceresses and angry peasant folk, which ends up destroying their only lab, which would create new Witchers. And in the ending, we see that Geralt is one of 3 Witchers to escape under Vesemir's tutelage, and that is it. It's meant to be an inciting incident. It destroys unbelievable amounts of Witcher timeline and canon. And once again, they break their own rules because we see the Witchers, who are supposed to be, again, they say this in the show a lot. You Witchers are supposed to be uncaring and devoid of emotion. We don't see that fucking ever, might I add. And it's supposed to be a big point of the books. And Geralt mentions, oh, it's the path of the Witcher and that all this thing numbs our emotions, which is true. It numbs them. It doesn't get rid of them, truthfully. He loves Yennefer and he loves Cirilla and all that jazz. But they seem to forget. They always seem to forget that these characters are meant to be stoic and a bit emotionally dead to do their jobs. We're just seeing regular people with swords and superpowers. It's a fucking superhero movie. Not to mention, when Vesemir's fighting in Nightmare of the Wolf, and he does the Witcher battle sign of Igni, which is supposed to produce a little gout of flame to douse flame-feared monsters, he lights a forest on fire. Because they had to go as anime with it as fucking possible. Because the only thing that they think audience understand is, ooh, pretty bright colors, explosions, and tits. But that is not the case.
There's also like very little continuality through it. At the end of it, it alludes to the fact that Vesemir is the only adult Witcher that survives the falling of the keep. Him and like 3 or 4 children.
Yeah.
But then, and they allude to parts of this in the 2nd season of The Witcher to basically making this canon history towards the Netflix series. Who are all of these people in the keep then? Because they destroyed the lab. They can't make any more new Witchers. But you've got this keep full of like 20 people.
who, might I add, just become fucking fodder in the last fight. 20 trained monster hunters, and you can't take down a single fucking bigger basilisk? Oh my fucking god, you are foot soldiers. You are supposed to be the elite fighting force, all trained just like fucking Geralt was, and you go down like bitches. Alright, there we go.
And the keep like burned down at the end of this. Like parts are falling everywhere. And I know in season 2 it's not in the best condition, but like it's a lot better than it was at the end of the animated Nightmare. And that tree, like you'd think if you light the place on fire, this big old wooden dry tree is gonna burn.
Oh yeah, the obelisk storyline doesn't exist, by the way, everybody. In the Netflix
Monoliths.
series, Monoliths, obelisk, I don't give a fuck. The big rocks that are apparently portals to monster worlds, that does not exist. That is once again an entirely contrived plot point MacGuffin. It is woefully inconsistent with the fucking lore. I have no idea why they included this. I really don't, because the idea of the conjunction of the spheres bringing monsters to the world and there being portals to other planes is already well established. Why do we need giant rock things? I actually don't understand their inclusion.
I was gonna
And
say, like, are the
me.
are the fucking writers of this show like fan of the original Power Rangers movies? Because why are there monoliths here?
I have a theory on that. Because before they're saying all of the monsters are dying out and everything, they're all like disappearing. People are talking about like we don't need witchers anymore because there's not any monsters for them to hunt. So if there's no more monsters, well, how does the storyteller get more monsters? Well, they have to create a doorway to the monster world. So that's what the writers did.
You're right.
They created doorways
Mhm.
to the monster world and made Ciri the key to open them.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Nightmare of the Wolf, a trash fire. Plot wise, character wise, ripping fight scenes straight from a different Netflix show. God damn. God damn. No one else has seen it though, so I'm not going to yell any more about it. My opinions are well known. Let's get to things maybe I won't stream about. Maybe. So, besides the books, which I've talked out at length, and I know no one else has read, there's not much I can say about them unless I just literally rattle off the entirety of the plot. I'm not going to do that. But I do want to say, firstly, they're not like the show. Secondly, they're not like the games. They're not action-packed. They're actually a very interesting discourse on morality, bits of philosophy, and the nature of man and destiny. That is actually what they're written for. Yes, there's some fight scenes in them. Yes, there's some interesting monster hunts, but it's about relationships, and they are pretty slow. Like I said, there's this inciting incident where Cirilla ends up being teleported a continent away from Geralt, and he has to go searching for her. And he gets together basically a D&D party of interesting characters, and they looking for her. And that is his story. That's his entire story. Yennefer has an interesting story about political discourse and hunting down the mage that incited this. And Cirilla has a story about surviving. And here's something that I don't think is going to make it into the Netflix show, but I really kind of wish they would. And it's a horrible thing to necessarily wish on a character, but I digress. When she goes down and joins this criminal gang, she gets sexually assaulted and gets Stockholm syndrome with the person who did it to her. And it's a horrible thing to wish on a character, but it develops her so much, and we see her change and grow and have to deal with her traumas because of it, and it makes her so deep and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're going to get any of that because, like I said, these events are entirely gone from what's going to be the plot line. Unless they somehow shoehorn them in some haphazard sideways way, I don't know how they're going to do it at all. At all. But I digress. That's the books. I quite like them. They're a bit slow, not nearly as slow as Lord of the Rings, and not nearly as slow as Game of Thrones, but they're pretty slow for what you'd assume, a monster hunter to be about. That's all I'll say.
Unlike Game of Thrones, this one's finished.
Unlike it. You hear that, fucking Martin? You hear that? Whew. That's a good one.
God, at the rate that we've been talking shit about certain authors and like companies, we're not going to work with anyone.
Give me your hate. It feeds me.
We're gonna have to start our own publishing house to just publish anything.
Oh my god. Do you know what the first book we should publish there?
Hmm.
Why J.K. Rowling sucks and should disown Harry Potter. Fuck you, turf.
I think Harry Potter should disown J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The community already has. It's just time for thing. It's just time for like, what is it, Bloomsbury? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make this about me. Just continue on.
Lol. Okay. Moving on. Last thing to really discuss is the Witcher video games. And again, no, not a lot of people have too many experience with them. But I think The Witcher 3 was a huge enough video game that a lot of people semi-understand what it's about. But I'll give a bit of a strange, recap. 3 Witcher games, 1, 2, and 3. The first one takes place after the end of the last book. It's not a retelling at all, which is what makes me okay with it. It's an extension, which actually wraps up a plot line that was never further explored in the books. Now, it decanonizes a bit of the end of the last book. I am also okay with that because the end of the last book is weird. The author was, once again, with the first couple stories, retelling mythologies, fables, and fairy tales, from Beauty and the Beast to The Little Mermaid. You don't realize it, but the entirety of the Witcher saga is actually an allusion to the Arthurian cycle and ends with Cirilla teleporting through the plains into fantasy England to join the Arthurian cycle. Which is very strange. It's extremely weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and whatever. But beginning of the first game, Geralt wakes up with amnesia, doesn't remember anything that happened in the books, just knows that he's a Witcher, goes out hunting, has a little adventure in the first game. The first game, almost not canon, because there's some time travel shenanigans, and it really doesn't fit. Second game, canon as hell. Second game, after the first one got a bit of a cult following, they put some time and effort into it. They realized they fucked with the story because they didn't know if they were going to get another game, so they retextualized some things, changed some things in world lore, and made it fit. Lots of monster hunting, lots of interesting political intrigue, and lots of good character development. Third game is a goddamn masterpiece, and everyone in the world has fucking heard of The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. It finally introduces the main villain of the series, which is the Wild Hunt, which you meet once in the first game, you hear about in the second game, and then you finally encounter in the third. It's a great build-up. It's a fantastic lead-up that is all done very well in world, with characters from the books properly established with their true backstories. By the end of the second game, Geralt remembers all the books again. And so you go into the third game with the knowledge that Geralt remembers his entire past and finally begins looking for Cirilla again. She doesn't exist in the first 2 books, and neither does Yennefer, because Geralt has entirely forgotten them, and it makes it super interesting. Third game comes, though. He's looking for them again because he remembers them at last. Third Nilfgaardian War is on the horizon. It's all a great contextualization, and it ties up the loose end of the Wild Hunt from the books, because they're kind of left hanging at the end of the series. Cirilla runs away from them at one point, and they just don't chase her, and we're not sure why. So it establishes more interest in the Wild Hunt, and the apocalypse that it mentions that Cirilla is supposed to be able to bring or stop is never 100% elaborated on in the books. And in the TV series, we haven't only heard basic inklings of it. It's super elaborated on, and it makes perfect sense in world, drawing on things from the books to make it fit this apocalypse that's coming that Cirilla can stop. It takes The Witcher and then expands upon it, which is what an adaptation like this should do. And we talked a little bit earlier about the Witcher schools. The Witcher schools are a fantastic, beautiful way to adapt. In the continent, it's huge. It spans a massive area. One little Witcher school of Kaer Morhen is not going to be able to pump out the Witchers, because remember, only like 2 in 10 people, 2 in 10, 2 in 10 children survive the Trial of the Grasses and become Witchers. And that's after training, finding them, getting them ready, and then 8 out of 10 of your fucking applicants die. There's not many Witchers per school. So you've got different schools located out about the different areas of the continent, and each of them trains in a different specialty. And I know it's only video game lore, but they did a fantastic job of making that feel like it was canon and really drawing again on the source material to make it in The Witcher 3. If you haven't played it, I fully recommend it. Lee, romance options are optional. That's why they're called options.
We'll see if I ever get back to it.
You'll love the Monster Hunter.
I just was not. I was about to say I was not expecting it in my solve mystery slaughter monster video game. And then they're just like, here's a romance plot, and I was like, and goodbye.
And goodbye.
I was gonna say it was just, I think it was just like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I haven't been like far enough into like the game to experience like everything that's so fantastic about it. But just like, I think like if I ever decide to like seriously put some time into The Witcher 3, maybe I might have a different opinion on it. But just, it's like it's like there is a lot of like good potential in it already. Like it's like sewing in like some fantastic character interactions between like Geralt and Yen and Geralt and Vesemir, but at the same time just it just feels more like knowing everything that we have talked about. Like it's wonderful to hear that it's not only just its own, like it's an adaptation of the books, but it's also feels like its own thing at the same time, which gives it like plenty for not just plenty for like hardcore people who like love The Witcher, but for people who have no idea what The Witcher even is, to like invest and like make that world itself very interesting. That's what makes good adaptations good adaptations. It's something for everyone.
And to speak on the games a bit more, if I were to recommend a play, don't play The Witcher 1. They didn't necessarily know what they were doing. They got the chance to make a game and they did their best with it. The technology wasn't that good at the time. It's clunky as hell. It's an experience, to be sure. Start with The Witcher 2. Because again, The Witcher 1 is not very canonized at this point, even to the other Witcher games. They've had to retcon and change a bunch of things to make it fit. Start with The Witcher 2. Great, interesting moral choices, introduces you to the morally gray and black of the world, and then gets you into The Witcher 3 with enough knowledge of the backstory that you can take it away. And it's fantastic. Very good. I feel like the ending the ending outcome of The Witcher 3 is a little trivial. If you treat Cirilla nicely, you get one ending. If you don't treat her that nicely, you get a different ending. And that's about it. Again, Cirilla's pretty important in universe. But, I digress. Good games. Solid overall. Great addition to the concept. And then we have Gwent.
I love Gwent.
Like
I love it.
You're playing a fucking big RPG and they have to include some shitty little side mini games to keep you entertained. That's Gwent. I think it showed up it was in The Witcher 3 for sure. I can't remember if it was in The Witcher 2. I know The Witcher 2 had dice Yahtzee, basically, dice poker. But it's a card game that they developed for The Witcher 3. It's some fucked up little Magic the Gathering clone that is actually like a really solid in-depth card game that they then made a competitive card game online, which then flopped, and then they wanted to make another Witcher game, but instead of putting all that resources into it, they made the story of Queen Meve of the combined realms of Rivia and Lyria and her path on the war during the first and second Nilfgaardian War, but instead of playing a strategy game where you command soldiers, you play fucking cards against the enemy commanders to simulate a battle.
That's so creative, actually.
It's so good, and the art style is fantastic. The story choices are really good. Plus, she is on beat with both the story with both the book and video game histories of this character, and they expand her story and give her her own, because she was a minor queen in the fucking books and video games, but they give her her own story, and they don't bother including the fucking Witcher. She is on a different part of the continent doing different things during a war where lots of stories happen in war. Lots of different things can happen. They just took her and were like, we're going to make a story about her. Will there be Witchers in it? Yeah, there's a couple that show up, but this story isn't about Witchers. It's about Queen Maeve kicking ass, and she fucking do. With cards. Anyways.
That's sick as hell. Like, I was gonna say, like, I don't know what it was about Gwent that, like, kind of, like, for me, because, like, I was like, wait, what the fuck? What is happening here? Like, why? Because, like, I, like, got Witcher 3 kind of a little bit after, like, the initial hype around the game was, like, cooling down. Not stopping, but just cooling down. And people were still, like, raving about fucking Gwent. And I'm like, the fuck? Okay, so I need to try this. Didn't get shit all from it. And maybe that's just because I haven't played enough of it to kind of, like, get it. But just, I'm like, that's so creative that, like, there's been so much focus on, like, including, like, mini games in a video game. Like, I'm kind of unrelated, but just kind of to tie into what we were talking about. I've recently been playing Fallout New Vegas in my free time, and there's this game called
Gambling. Have you been gambling, Dean? Is that what I'm about to hear?
No, like there's that one card game, Caravan, I think.
Oh my god, Caravan.
That you kind of learn about, and I'm like, I'm probably never gonna play this, like, while I play through New Vegas, but I'm just like, this is cool. Like, I really like the addition to it. It just helps make the world feel more alive, and like like, from a gameplay perspective, like, Gwent is like a completely original game idea, right?
So I haven't looked too much into the history of Gwent, but I know in general how these things are typically made. They will typically take an old card game that exists IRL, change a bunch of the rules, slap new faces on the cards, and make it a custom. I don't know if Gwent is actually based off of anything. I have not done my research on that, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much a damn custom card game that they made for The Witcher.
That's sick. I really like that. That's cool to know.
And then, yeah, spawned its own game, and then Thronebreaker. And again, the Gwent game, I think, flopped pretty hard, but Thronebreaker is really good. Just an interesting inclusion into the world. It really made it feel alive. I didn't play much Gwent in the actual Witcher game. There's one quest where you have to, like, collect almost all the Gwent cards in The Witcher 3, and it's, people will tell you, the most slog of a fucking quest you could ever hope to fucking find.
Oh yeah, that's a fucking great addition that is, like, a mandatory thing in most, like, open world video games. Thanks, game company. I always love doing your fucking collectathons. Sorry, I did.
Yep, I feel you.
Just had to put that out there.
I feel you. And last point about the games, the monster hunting and the idea of telling a story around a hunt was something that they did super well, and that the Witcher books did super well. The story of the Striga in the TV show is done pretty good. In the book, it's fantastically interesting to see how the Witcher goes about it. In the game, you get more to the mechanics of it. In the books, you'll see Geralt drink a potion that you know causes him to be stronger, faster, whatever. He's got a silver sword for monsters, wears this equipment, yada, yada, yada. But you never really find out how they make their silver swords. What potions are they drinking? What are those made of? This, that, and the other thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not supposed to know as the reader. It doesn't really matter to the story as the reader. You just know that he has these things. Geralt knows what's in them. He's supposed to know. But the games you're playing is Geralt. And so they had to, through little hints of the system here and there in the books, figure out how to turn it into, a fun game mechanic. And they did. And they turned the hunts really fun with that in managing resources, finding out what the monster was weak to, and all that stuff. And then they take it steps further. Because when you get into the intelligent monsters, you get some really cool things. And you do get some intelligent and interesting choices. I know there was the episode with the satyr in the Witcher show, in the field with that one that was knocking them down with ball bearings. I forget what his name is.
Yeah, right, yeah.
That's canon. That one was actually followed really closely to what the actual story was. Surprisingly. And the whole idea that he won't kill an intelligent thing is very much up for debate. Because he talks a bit about the Witcher's path. And that is also a bit of debate and speculation, and it goes into it more in the games as well. The Witchers don't really have an established code or book of codexes. When Geralt refers to, I'm on the Witcher's path, I'm following the Witcher's rules, he's following the rules he set down for himself. And he will change them. These aren't necessarily the rules Vesemir gave him, though they may be very similar. The Witchers don't have a set code. They're not like Jedi and Sith in Star Wars, where you can rattle off the tenets of the Sith. It's not like that at all. They are hunters, and they do what is necessary on the hunt. And so their code isn't necessarily as hard and wrought in stone. But I was getting off topic. Intelligent monsters. My name and my character profile are a monster at the end of the Hearts of Stone DLC for The Witcher 3. His name's Gaunter O'Dim. I don't want to spoil too much for everyone. But seeing The Witcher go up against some elder demon fuck that is intelligent but clearly evil, it's like what Supernatural could have been. Quite. The whole Crossroads.
We're just throwing so
demon.
much shade this episode.
I am all shade. I wear black all the time for a reason.
Oh God, when we start ripping into like specific shows, like I know Alex is gonna have a blast.
It's gonna be fantastic.
I've still been thinking about doing like a BBC Sherlock episode, or just like a special.
Oh yes.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, on that note, I haven't watched any Sherlocks besides the RDJ ones, but I have read the original novel, so I can be mad about that.
Oh no! Okay. Oh my God. Oh fuck! If you're gonna watch BBC Sherlock, Tyler, I have to be there.
We should live stream it, or not live stream it.
We should just watch the first episode. A Study in Pink.
What? You mean A Study in Scarlet?
Nope, Study in Pink.
Nope.
I'm gonna murder Bend his dick coming, bitch.
Oh no. Yeah.
All right.
If I thought The Witcher was gonna be a thing, if this is what it's like for The Witcher, how committed are you to Sherlock, Tyler?
I have read, almost all the short stories. I'm not sure where I'm at in the actual proper novellas and plots, but
oh God,
it was a while back. This is years ago that I read Sherlock on some whims, but I do know fair portion. If we're going to do something like this, I will have to study up, but I digress.
Oh God, oh no. Okay, anyway.
Fun. Anyways, so that is The Witcher, and all I can think to say about it, I could definitely dive into some more nitpicks on the TV series. It's the most, violent adaptation I've ever seen. Especially, all right, nitpick time. Fucking magic eels in the pool at Aretusa, that's where you get your power from? What the actual fuck? I thought you drew it from chaos. What are these fucking eels for? Huh?
I also love how Yen just like dumps them into the pool afterwards, just not even touching them, but with a broom.
Like
So good. Hey, happy graduation! You have no more friends. Bye bye.
like the whole I kind of understand why it is that they were doing that. It's like because they were pinning because they were doing chaos as like this whole like give and take thing, and maybe I'm butchering the explanation, but just like for what power you have with chaos, there is ultimately something that is like sacrificed or offered that, or like, you know, you need to do something. And even then, like, if you kind of think of it that way, the bullshit explanation of like, hey, if you're gonna sacrifice your classmates, they first have to turn into fucking eels, and then you give them up to Aretuza. It's like, what?
But they weren't technically sacrificed because they didn't die. She goes back to that pool later on in the first season and talks and like senses that they're still there, tries to talk to them or something, commune with them.
You've turned your students into a magic battery.
Which like is messed up in its own way, really.
Well, it's also an interesting concept. If you were to stick with that canon at all, notice how it's not mentioned at all in the second season. Yen loses her fucking powers. So what? Somebody killed all the eels in the pool? Why if the other mages lost their powers? Where the fuck did her powers go? I thought she got it from the eels.
How to topple the mageocracy. You go kill the eel.
Okay, wait. Another thing, if we're talking about nitpicks, I can't verify this from the books, but Tisea and Vilgefortz having something.
Okay. I forgot.
All right, yeah, that's all I need to say. Yeah, we need to do what Lee said in the chat. Just like poke Tyler with let's just say things that we say and see how it reacts.
It's illegal to use fire magic, isn't it, Tyler?
Yeah, that's totally fucking canon. We totally can't use fire magic for whatever bullshit reason just to make Yennefer a little bit more special.
The firefucker explained it to Yaski when he was torturing him. Because fire needs fuel to burn, and if you can't control it, it's going to use your life force or something like that. That's why they're not supposed to use fire magic in like the animated Nightmare Wolf thing and the second season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but I thought you got your power from the eels, so why does it need to burn your soul if you use fire magic?
Because there's not enough eels. And they're wet, so they can't burn. Come on, Tyler.
So we're going to listen to physics now?
For the magic eels, I will.
If we're nitpicking, there is one thing that, like, the Witcher amulets that are supposed to, like, vibrate or buzz or whistle or whatever around monsters, they don't work half the time.
Eskel walks in with a fucking lesson inside of him, and the amulets don't do shit. Cirilla walks in with a fucking extra planar rider of the wild hunt inside of her, and they don't do shit, which is wrong because we see them wiggling later.
Yep.
But not when she goes in. No? Not at all? Okay.
I love seeing how like there's an obvious like inconsistency with the storytelling there. I love it. Like I like, maybe it's unfair to compare it to this, but like even in Lord of the Rings Sting, whenever like there were orcs or goblins around to glue blue, and it's like that's an easy thing to keep. That's an easy thing to remember. Just I think maybe even like if you were to and again, like if we're nitpicking, like if you were to have like all the Witcher amulets start like essentially fucking wiggling, like when like danger was like when there was like some kind of monster or threat there, like, well, why the fuck don't you act on it? Like there would be a whole lot of a really interesting tension if like if you did have like Eskel with the Leshy being recognized, and like everyone was suddenly like not like trusting of him anymore, that would have such really interesting conflicts, because then it's like, holy shit, Eskel's our brother, what do we do? Like thing, he's like our like Shield Brother or something, Skyrim, some fucking nonsense. Just like that would have been such an interesting thing because like it played into the whole thing of like you know every winter the the witches come back to Kaer Morhen and celebrate and shit. And yeah, they did some celebrating, but I would have fucking loved to have seen I would have fucking loved to have seen some disconnect into in that celebration, because here's one of your brothers like infected by Aleshi. What the hell do you do?
Oh. So now that we're back on the actual Witchers talking about, there are not that many Witchers left. Wintering down for that time with Cirilla, there are like 4. And I'm not including Geralt even. There's Vesemir, there's Lambert, there's Eskel, and there's Lambert's apprentice, Cohen, who's training to be a Witcher. But he's not going to be a Witcher because they don't have the mutagens to turn him into the Trial of Grasses. That's it. That's all that occupies Kaer Morhen, because they were hunted to extinction, and they can't make any more. Keep in mind. And they're not an old boys club. They are dour old soldiers. Eskel is a bit of a prick, yes. He's a bit raunchy, and he goes around dealing with contracts in an almost vengeful manner. He'll hunt monsters that wrong him, and he'll get really mad at people when they skimp and pay him, and then he'll steal it from them because they owe him the money. Lambert's completely different from what he was in the fucking books. He's not some loudmouth prick who fucking constantly whores and drinks. No, Lambert is what a Witcher really should be. He is stoic, he's a bit cold, and he's calculating. He doesn't go out for fame or glory. He is hunting monsters because it's his job and his duty. He does it well, he does it quietly, he accepts payment, he leaves. And he actually admonishes Geralt for being a famous Witcher. Because he's like, that's kind of stupid. Now when people see you, they'll know you're coming. And the monsters will too, especially the ones that hide among humans. You've painted a target on yourself. And Vesemir is an old sword master. Very kind to Cirilla. Loves teaching her the sword tricks. Very good to his boys. He's not obsessed with making new Witchers. Because here's an important point in the books that doesn't exist in the shows. They don't really want to make new Witchers. They had the process done to them. They watched friends and Shield brothers who were training with them die, strapped to these chairs, pumped full of mutagens. So when they lost the mutagens, find out how to do the Trial of the Grasses again, they all agreed not to look for it because they don't want to do that to anyone else. They are the last Witchers, and they want to be the last Witchers. And that is a huge and interesting moral quandary that is completely wiped away in the show by Vesemir being like, nope, I want to make more Witchers. I want to have more sons. It requires elder blood. Ciri has elder blood. Let's prick her. And it takes away his whole nature and the whole idea of that dying race that the Witchers are supposed to be. That endangered species.
Mm-hmm.
All to give Vesemir a reason to chase down Cirilla so that, guess what? Everyone hates Ciri. Ciri cannot have people like her for whatever reason.
So if Ciri's blood is needed to create the mutagen to make more Witchers, it's counterproductive for him to turn her into a Witcher, mutating her blood. Because it'd be Witcher blood, it wouldn't be Elder blood anymore.
Also, the Elder blood's lost in a certain family line. Where were you getting the elder blood to make your fucking Witcher mutagens in the first place? Because the elder blood is a hidden genetic code within blood that only appears certain times, which is why, again, Cirilla is genetically engineered. So where are you getting this fucking elder blood to make your Witcher mutagens 300 fucking years ago? The inconsistencies. Anyways.
Okay. Like as we were talking, there were a couple, like there was one thing I want to give praise to, and one thing I want to like absolutely like call out and say I didn't fucking want this. Point of praise. When Fringilla used magic to essentially freeze everyone in the room and stab everyone in the face except for Cahir, that was cool. I like that. Like, I don't know what relevance it kind of has in thing. I don't know what relevance it kind of has, but it's just a cool moment because like for a long time, or like as you know, within the show's canon, it was kind of pitching Fringilla as like a pushover. I think like it's just kind of like she falls in line and doesn't really stick up for herself. Where that was like a good fucking moment where she was just like, yeah, no, I recognize the power that I have. I'm going to end most of you. That was cool.
It was a really, really, really cool scene. But
Allow us to interject one point, Dean, because we are both very particular about this one. It'll only take a second. Go.
her dialogue, based on her dialogue, she said it was Nightshade she used Nightshade in the mead to cause the paralytic effect. It wasn't magic that froze. The magic would have worked so much better because Nightshade is a poison. Nightshade would just kill them outright.
That's fair. That's fair.
So anybody
Convenient.
thought it was really cool and they can use Nightshade to like make somebody just like freeze in motion and everything. No, that's just gonna kill them, and probably you as well for exposing yourself to Nightshade.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. That, yeah.
But other than that, it's a really cool scene.
Yeah. We were like Tyler, like we were kind of speaking earlier, like all of us were speaking earlier about like shit that was kind of unnecessary, and in particular, like it felt like men writing women. I want to know who the fuck wrote that one bath scene where all of Eretuz's like known like casters just all decided to share a bath together. Whose fucking idea was that? I didn't want that. Why?
So, little side anecdote. I don't mind the Witcher series. It's not my favorite series. I speak about it impassioned because I am a bitter artist who does not like adaptation. But if we're being honest, of all the scenes in the show, the author probably appreciates that one the most because he's a bit of a horn dog.
Oh, really? Oh my god.
Geralt fucks everything in sight. In the books, like it's a lot. And if you've ever watched or read because he is Polish and he doesn't speak too much English, if you've ever read a transcription of the interviews with Witcher's author, he's a raunchy dude. So like of all the scenes, that one's probably the one he appreciated the most. But even so, he writes Yennefer fucking amazing while still being a bit of a raunchy asshole. Just a random anecdote. But yes, I agree. For the show of tits, like we had to match Game of Thrones, didn't we?
I mean, did they actually show their tits though? I think
Nope.
they were underwater.
No. In season 1, like definitely, but in season 2, no.
But yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Because
And
like
Yennefer's dress stay up.
Yeah.
Magic.
I never actually got your thing. I never actually got your opinion on this like thing. Like we never actually heard your opinion on one of the characters in the series. Not just in this, like not just obviously in the Netflix show, but like in like throughout the wider canon, Triss.
Oh. Okay. Okay. I need to figure out where to start with this one. Because the timeline's all fucked up with where she should be. So she's in parts of stories that she shouldn't be in, which is part of the problem. She's not in the Striga story, right? Which is our first interaction with her. In truth, we only see Triss in the first actual novel. She's not in any of the short stories. And what makes her really interesting is her and Yen are best friends. She's a bit younger than Yennefer, having only graduated Eretuz a little bit ago. I believe she's got this weird quirk where she's allergic to her own magic in the stories, which again isn't touched on in the shows at all. But she really likes Geralt. And there was a point, and this is actually done through not flashback, but the characters discuss it. Yennefer and Geralt lived together for a while. Basically as husband and wife, until Yennefer cheats on Geralt with Istrith, who is an entirely different character in the novels. But they keep meeting and getting back together. It happens like a dozen times in canon. Not just the once in the fucking show. They keep meeting and keep falling back in love and keep separating because of this genie's wish. And Triss, on one of these occasions, notices that Geralt and Yen break up, and Geralt is heartbroken, and she takes advantage of that to fuck him because she is deeply attracted to him. And then going down the line, Yen doesn't get mad at her. She's like, no, you're my friend. You like a man, you should get what you want. But she's mad at fucking Geralt. And it's fantastic the way it's done. Calling him a fucking man whore and how dare you sleep with my best friend. And he goes, well, why aren't you mad at her? And she's like, she's my best friend. Why would I be mad at her for getting some good dick? You, on the other hand, are an asshole. And it's fantastic. And it's super well done. Triss becomes an older sister, basically, to Cirilla, and is the first one to try and help her control her budding magics. And throughout the series, she can be seen playing in the plots of the sorceresses. Because the sorceresses try to form their own organization outside of the Brotherhood of Mages and do some very interesting political stuff. In the books, that's kind of what she's relegated to. But in the game, she takes on a much more prominent role, as now that Geralt has lost his memory, she kind of sees her chance to get that thing she wanted out of him, and she does take advantage of his amnesia and basically convinces him of the fact that she is the one that he was meant to be with, not Yennefer, because she doesn't even tell him about Yennefer is the thing. She does not mention her. No one mentions it because they're worried about breaking Geralt's brain due to the amnesia. So this whole time, she's fucking Geralt, knowing that Yen is out there somewhere and trying to help Geralt regain his memories. And that's why The Witcher 3 gets very interesting when you have the choice between Yennefer and Triss, because Triss has basically been manipulating you for 2 games in a row. But for the player, this is the first time you've ever met Yennefer, unless you've read the books. And it made it super fucking interesting. And again, they're still best friends. It's fucking hilarious to see their interactions around Geralt. And I'm going to point out 2 in particular. In one point in The Witcher 3, you go back to Kaer Morhen. The past 2 games, you have been fucking Triss in Kaer Morhen and around the globe. Yennefer goes into Kaer Morhen, sees red hair in Geralt's bed, and throws the bed out the fucking window. It's fantastic. It's lovely. In the games, you can choose to try and romance both Yen and Triss. And even if you don't like romance options, I recommend that you try, because the ending you get for trying to romance both of these best friends is unbelievably fantastic.
It's worth it.
And I'm not going to spoil it any more than that. So yes, Triss is weak, very weak, like watered down version of what she should be. Because again, she is a powerful mage that has lived a century or more, who knows what she wants and does work to get it. Whereas she seems kind of whiny and desperate in the TV show.
I was gonna say, yeah, just from what I was familiar with from the Witcher games, like Triss apparently was a pretty big deal. So seeing her reduced role in season 1, I was like, shit, I like, if this character is such a big deal, especially because like how early on like we met her and stuff, like I'm happy that they had thing. I'm happy that, like, as you were saying, like they were playing on like her being kind of like the older sister role for Ciri until eventually just one like interaction just kind of like turned her off. So
Which
like
was a really strange interaction, I will say. Very strange.
Mm-hmm. So then, yeah, just I don't know what it was. Like Triss could have been a really interesting character, but like the fact that it was just so like, because there was the whole like subplot too where she went back to Aretuza for some reason.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird. You want to know one character I think they did really good justice as a side character, though he shouldn't be in the story yet? Fucking Dijkstra, King of Redania's spy master. He's a very interesting character in the novels, and they're playing into his cleverness quite a bit in the Netflix series. Though again, he's not even supposed to be a character yet. That happens later at the main interesting inciting incident. But again, I don't know what they're planning with that. So, Triss, watered down. Dijkstra, surprisingly good.
Mm-hmm.
weird what they decide to focus on and what traits they decide to rip away and which ones they decide to leave. I'll never understand adaptation.
Yeah. Well,
word for word or not at all, and I'm gonna get that etched into my chest. Okay. All right, Lee, do you have any last comments or nitpicks about The Witchers? Because I know me and Dean have been yelling. Well, I've been yelling. I've been yelling a lot. Go ahead, Lee.
I've just been listening, if I'm completely honest. There isn't much that has been said that I can add to at this point. I had a great time watching the show. I had a fun time. There were some things that were definitely questionable, and I don't like how the characters were watered down almost universsally.
Yeah. Marie-Soleil?
That's about it.
Other closing comments?
I think I've said my pieces. I just found a fun fact because I looked it up, and the mice in the last episode were real mice, and Joey Beatty named them, and one of them he named Gordon got stuck in his chest hair. And I just thought that was a fun fact.
I love it.
That's funny. I like that.
They had actual mice on set. And for some reason, he took his shirt off around one of them.
That seems like a Dandelion thing to do. I will say,
honestly,
the songs for Dandelion, pretty good.
Burn.
Why did you put so much production value into those when you could have put it into your characters? But they're pretty good.
Because it's a breakup song.
God damn.
Mhm.
Anyways, I think that's it, folks. Any more closing
yeah, I think
comments?
that's all she wrote.
Yeah, just all good for me.
I'll scream the outro then. Well then, with all that being said, let's close down for tonight. Thank you everybody for listening in. I hope you turned your headphones down. We are the Ink Guild on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, but our main home is on YouTube and Spotify. You can connect with each of us individually through our own social media and check out our Wix if you want to learn more about us. If you want to send me hate mail, do it. I fucking dare you. Otherwise, please sponsor us. Any publishing houses we've offended, we will take it all back. Keep an eye out for more podcasts and other creative projects in the future. Thanks again for listening. Have a good night and goodbye.
Bye, guys.
We also have a Tumblr if you're still on that platform.
I like how you say
Bye.
I like how you say as if it's like there's still like no one like potentially left on Tumblr. I'm pretty sure there are people still there.
There are people on Tumblr. There are, yeah. I just don't know if they're the people that are listening to this at this point.
Yeah, all 6 people left on Tumblr tune into this one episode.
All right. That's all, folks.
Okay, bye guys.
See you.